How you doing today? Good to be here with you. September is National Recovery Month, and Clean Cause is inviting everyone to celebrate the fact that recovery is possible and that anything is possible. Grab a Clean Cause organic yerba mate and get your day going with 160 milligrams of better caffeine. It won't cause the crashes, the jitters, like some of those other energy drinks and even coffee might do sometimes. Here's the best part. Here's why we partner with Clean Cause. Not only because they have great drinks that are refreshing and have a little bit of good caffeine in them, but every sip makes a difference in the fight against addiction. Clean Cause donates 50% of net profits to support individuals in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. Yes, you heard that right, 50%. That's insane. What company does that? So here's the thing. Throughout September, Clean Cause is offering Sober Guy listeners 30% off their online orders with promo code SOBERGUY30. And I just want to give a huge thanks to Alex and the Clean team for hooking our listeners up in September in honor of National Recovery Month. And they make it real simple. You go online, you go to cleancause.com, select what kind of case of Clean Cause drinks you want. They ship them right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that. You can also find them at all your local shops and grocery stores and everything like that too. But to get a case delivered right to your door and get 30% off your order this month to support National Recovery Month is just a great thing. So grab a boost, live better, transform lives. Head on over to cleancause.com, get 30% off, use promo code SOBERGUY30 at checkout. Let's start the show.
That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Ramey. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. You can find more podcasts, more resources, and also contact us by going to thatsoberguy.com. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. All the links from today's show will be in the show notes so they're easy for you to find. Our guest today is Gary Menkes. And Gary was born and raised in Port Washington, New York. Struggled with alcoholism and addiction since his early teens. And he completely transformed his life when he was given the gift of sobriety on May 13th, 2006. And Gary also recently launched his own podcast, the Begin Again podcast, which I recently had the honor of being a guest on. So be sure to check that one out. We'll talk a little bit about that in his show a little bit later in the convo. And the Begin Again podcast showcases stories of addiction, those who have recovered, hopefully inspiring and encourage some others to kick those bad habits out. So, Gary, it's great to have you on the podcast, my friend. How are you?
Wayne, I'm good, Buds. How are you doing? Good to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It was great to be on the Begin Again podcast a couple of weeks back. So really appreciate that. And man, we talked a little football before we got going. I got the Raiders. I still feel weird. So this Raiders hat I have on, for those just listening, it says Las Vegas Raiders on it. I'm very used to wearing an Oakland Raiders hat. So when I bought this one, it felt a little odd, but I'm still rocking it. Got to represent. And you're a big time Jets fan. And we were talking a little bit about the Jets Bills game last night where just one of my favorite dudes, Aaron Rodgers, just goes down with what ends up being potentially a career ending Achilles tear, man. Just some sad news in the football world today, man.
Oh, man. Yes, as you said, diehard Jet fan. And honestly, I'm still in shock. It's devastating. I mean, Aaron Rodgers came in and was all in on this team. He took everyone under his wing. Honestly, as a Jet fan, it was by far the most hopeful we had for this season. We got a killer defense, and we had AR behind them, taking the snaps, leading the way. And we said off camera, 0 for 1 for 0 yards and 4 snaps. And hopefully his career is not over. Hopefully he comes back.
Yeah, we'll see. 39 years old, the Achilles tear, that's a rough one, but you never know. I mean, crazier things have happened. There's all kinds of crazy technology and good stuff that can help heal. But I hope I do see him back, man. Like I mentioned, he's a Cal guy, and I really admire a lot of his stances and takes on things outside of football, and he's got a great story as well too. So, man, we'll see what happens. But in any case, it should be a fun football season. I'm pretty excited about it.
No, no doubt. Me too. I can't believe it. I feel like the summer flew by, and I couldn't believe I'm watching NFL on Sunday, and here we are, Monday night, and this happens. But you mentioned all the technologies for his Achilles.
Yeah,
Guy right behind me there, on the other side, Kobe. He did the same thing with his Achilles, and you
that's
know what
right.
it is? It's the heart of a champion. It's the mindset. Let's
Wow.
just see if he wants to. I gotta believe my heart that he doesn't want to go out on that MetLife turf.
Oh yeah.
0 for 1, 4 snaps for the Jets. So let's
No
see,
way.
man. Let's see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think you hit it. You hit it right there, man. The heart of a champion, and I think that's a good transition into recovery. Just in life in general, man. A lot of us out there who've struggled with different addictions or alcohol or different things in our lives, man. We do possess that heart of a champion. And it's kind of like that hero story where sometimes, man, we get knocked down to the very bottom, the very depths of where we never thought we would be. And, we got to ask for some help. We got to pray to God, and we got to pick our, asses up and pull ourselves out. And, man, you have some of that in your background, some of your story. And so I thought maybe, it might be best to have you kind of intro yourself and tell us, and those out there listening a little bit more about yourself and about your story, Gary.
Yeah, hey, you bring up a good point too about the heart of a champion into recovery. We meet so many amazing people, right, in these rooms, Shane.
Mm-hmm.
It's no secret. I got sober in AA. I'm not an AA thumper. I'm from the camp. I don't care how you get here, just get here, man, get here. But we meet so many amazing people. In fact, I was reading a book last night with a group of sober guys. We have a Monday night group, and name of the book is there's more to stopping drinking than stopping drinking. But there was a part, and it was about emotional sobriety, and it was about changing your own hero. You're changing your own story and being the hero in your own story. And you kind of just touched upon that. And yeah, mindset's a big part of it. It's funny. I'm a big fan of mindset. Like, you look behind me, I got Derek Jeter, I got Michael Jordan, I got Kobe, right? And they're not up there because of their rings, man. They're up there because they are the hardest working guys in the room, and they got like I said, we'll keep going with their heart of a champion, heart of a lion. And that's why those are the people I admire, and those are the people I admire in the rooms these days too. And I can dive in. You touched upon my bio early. Yeah, I grew up in Long Island. I think I was an alcoholic from the get-go. I'm the first grandchild of my mom's side. My mom's one of 10. There's a lot of alcoholism on her side of the family. Not her. She was one of the ones that, at my mom's side, you either drink or you don't drink. No one ever really went into recovery, but, there's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of generational alcoholism. Family members have died from alcoholism, died from the disease. And, I say I was the first grandchild, one, because I'm super proud of that. I really am. But two, they were looking at me early on, Shane, like, watch that guy. Like, he's got it. Right. And, I lived up to those expectations, unfortunately, but I also started getting into trouble. And so I think I lead the families as far as, arrests and trouble. But, I grew up normal way, normal childhood, I guess, loved sports, played sports, worked at the local PAL from 8 years old to high school. My dad and grandfather owned a gas station and an auto repair shop, and I was working there since I was about 8 years old. I was always in the shop with them and always outside pumping gas and doing stuff like that. But I started drinking, I think, normally, maybe a little younger than most kids do, like 9, 10, 12, 11 years old, started, stealing people's mom's liquor cabinet. And my friends are always a little older than me. I don't know, a little bit younger than most of them. Still the best, closest group of buddies you could ever imagine. They're all talk to them all every single day. I'm in a chat and talking about Aaron Rodgers all day last night. But started drinking normally. But as soon as it hit my lips, I was just a little bit different. Fast forward, just to give you an idea, it's a big part of my story. I was 16 years old. It was the night before Thanksgiving. I stuck into the bar, Finn McCool's. If you read a book about the 1986 Mets, the night they won the World Series, they all went to Finn McCool's in Port Washington. It's nice. Awesome town bar. It's a famous town bar for me, at least. And so anyway, night before Thanksgiving, big night in my town. I think it's a big night for most towns, I guess. The night before Thanksgiving, I'm going there. I was with my cousins all day long. We were in batting cages, started drinking during the day, and they were talking about going to Finland pools. Like I said, I was 16, and I'm like, I'm going to get in this bar tonight. I'm going to get in that bar. And I snuck in the bar, or I somehow just got right in, and I was in my element. I knew everybody in the bars. By far the youngest one in there. By far the smallest one in there. And, couple hours later, a fight breaks out with my cousins into the street, and I wake up Thanksgiving morning with a first-degree assault of a police officer. They went, allegedly went to lock up my cousin, and I went and kind of protected him. And I say that, and I tell that story a lot. Everyone who hears me knows that story. It kind of changed the trajectory of my life, though. Yeah. I went from like this kind of wild, drinker, kind of normalish stuff to like serious trouble and young. I was, I know you were a baseball player. I was the captain of my high school baseball team, and now I'm missing games because I've been court for 2 years, and everyone started looking at me a little differently at that point. They were from like, yeah, he's cool, to like, hey, the tough guys, I should say, quote unquote, like, come hang out with me, and everyone just started treating me a little differently. I hate to say, but some of them. A little more respect, I guess, is a silly way. But I came from like a blue collar area, so there was a lot of kind of tough guys around my town. Great town, greatest town. I wouldn't change a thing. And so, fast forward, I was a career bartender. Today's September 12th when we're recording this. Yesterday was September 11th. I did a semester in college. I played baseball in junior college for 1 year, and I just played baseball. I'd never go to class, so that didn't last very long. I failed out, and no college degree here, but I got a job. I was bartending, and a guy came in and said, "What are you doing here? You should come to work for me on Wall Street." And I gave it a shot. I took my Series 7, got my tests, and I passed them, and I went to work on Wall Street. And next thing you know, I got my foot in the door in a real firm, a real bulge bracket firm downtown Manhattan on Greenwich Street, and I started there February 2001. And yesterday was 22 years. September 11th, I was about half a mile, about 6-7 blocks north of that, and that was another big part of all of our lives, But it was I always am hesitant to talk about 9/11, but it seems to come up all the time, Shane. Yeah. So obviously it's a big part. It was the first time in my life, I really. I didn't care. Like everything kind of got dark. I always thought I wanted a family. I didn't want a family after that. I was like, I'm not bringing any kids into this world. I just went to a dark place. And, that happened September of 01, and April of 2002, a few months later, 4 or 5 months later, I'm on a bender, and I don't show up for work. This is my first real job too. I'm no longer bartending. I have my weekends off. I actually have like a salary. I have health care, like a real job, and I blow it. I go on a bender and I blow it just a few months into it. And we went out with a bunch of guys from work. I always felt uncomfortable too. Like I stuck out like a sore thumb in my mind. I wasn't good enough. I suffer from I'm not enough too, Shane, a lot. Like I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I mentioned I didn't have a college degree. I'm sitting around, a bunch of Ivy Leaguers, so I started to develop, the chip on my shoulder started when I was young, but I venture to say that chip on my shoulder has helped me at times too, a little competitive edge. But so I go on a bender, I think it was a Thursday night. I don't show up Friday. I go out all weekend. I don't show up Monday. I don't show up Tuesday. And I get a letter FedEx hand delivered to me that I had to sign for it. Open it. It's like, Gary, if you're alive, you need to contact us. Otherwise, your job's terminated. We think maybe you're not even alive. So I thought quickly on my feet, Shane. I had it in my head somewhere. I guess I had heard like, if you go to rehab, man, like they can't fire you. So I think. Just an effort to bide some time. I was like, all right, I think I'm going to do this. Plus, I was in bad shape. I was in really, really bad shape. And so I called them and I said, I'm alive. And I said, but I got a problem with alcohol and I'm going to get help for it. And I went and found a rehab in upstate New York. It's called St. Christopher's. They call it the Miracle on the Mountain. That was, like I said, April of 2002. And I went up there, and it was the first time, Shane, I was in an AA meeting. And it was the first time sitting in a circle. And I remember it clear as day right now. It got to me, and I had to say, I'm Gary, and I'm an alcoholic. And I thought my life was over. And I said, look what you did to yourself now, man. Like, look where you are. You're an alcoholic. You're away in rehab. You probably just lost your job. Probably losing your friends. Like I was on such a bad path of just trouble, of soul sickness. Really, really bad spot. And so I went up there, and I lasted 28 days. In my head, all I did was go to meetings, and I was just trying to go through the motions, though. Like, I wasn't being completely honest there, and all I did was smoke butts, pretty much a couple packs of cigarettes a day, and I kind of just checked out of life for 30 days. But the seed was planted, and so I came out of that rehab, and I never was able to put 90 days together. And so you mentioned my sober date is May 13th, 2006. So for those 4 years, I was in and out of the rooms. I was in and out of, the sayings, belly full of mind full of and belly full of booze is a bad place to be. Drugs is definitely part of my story. I had a very active dad when I was a kid growing up. Loved cocaine. There was a lot of, I'd open up my drawer to get spoon for my Cheerios, and there's cut cocaine straws in there and weed everywhere. And it's just kind of in the house we had. And, I knew that's why I got kids now. And I'm like, I knew what was going on. I saw things, normal 8, 9, 10-year-olds aren't supposed to see. And so I hated cocaine. I hated it, but then I found it, and it allowed me to drink more. And so once I found that, like, I already hear this too, like cocaine may have progressed my disease a little faster. I think that is certainly for me, but I was a funny dude. Like, I was like, yeah, man, I'm cool. I'm just drinking. I don't even need the guy's number, And then as soon as I had literally one beer in me, I'd be like, give me the guy's number and call him right now. And I would do it all too. Like, even my friends who kind of could do this sort of normally, I was doing everything like abnormally. Like, they would even have to hide the stuff from me, and then it would get like, that caused problems. They call the guy now. We're gonna have a problem. They'd have to call him, and so it sped everything up. But I was sitting in my apartment. I was living in New York City. Great place. It's funny. Everything that New York City has to offer, Shane. The thing I love about it the most, it's the AA. All I did was go to AA meetings. There was a time after May 13th. All I did was get a pamphlet, go to work. I kept a job somehow, but go to work, look at the pamphlet, and go to a meeting, maybe 2 meetings every single day. That's all I did. And I thought everything was over. I thought my boys were, I'm probably going to lose my boys. My job, I'm not going to be able to further it, even though I still have it. I'm not going to be able to kind of climb my career ladder, if you will. And, I've been given the gift. I was given the gift of surrender for some reason. May 12th, 2006, I didn't want to do it anymore. And I said, God, I don't want to do this anymore. What do I do? And, I mentioned, I'm the oldest grandchild. I have like 20-something younger cousins, and they kind of looked up to me. They live out East End, Long Island, and I, Barry, the oldest cousin, is New York City, Wall Street, yada, 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 but, athlete a little bit, and they looked up to me. They did. And I just remember sitting there thinking, like, what are these kids going to think of me? Is this what I'm supposed to show them? Is this the role model? I'm not saying like that was my job to be the role model, but, I was. And so I was just overcome with this. I didn't want to do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And so but I was never going to go back to AA either, which is funny. And next thing I know is that night I'm calling in a group and finding a meeting. And I went to a meeting on May 13th, 2006, and I haven't had a drink or a drug since. And like I said, I thought my life was over. My life was just beginning, man. It was just starting.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it, man. Thank you, man. That's a great story. And, there's a lot to it. I was kind of taking some notes as you were sharing. And so I got a couple of things I'd like to follow up on with you. I guess I'll start here. So in those 4 years that you described where you were kind of in and out, back and forth. And like you said, that seed was planted that initial time that you went to rehab, even though you were just kind of smoking cigarettes and going through the motions. I remember that too. Just lots of cigarettes in rehab. And, it's funny. But what was it that finally you think like clicked? Like, because I hear a lot of guys they're on the fence like that. They're in and out, they're back and forth. I went through that too in the early, like, as I tried to do it on my own, quite a few times, didn't work. I had kind of one foot in, one foot out. But Was there something in particular that kind of was like the final thing that, did it for you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I talk to a lot of people too, and there seems to be this like moment, right? And I can't say that something actually clicked at that moment. I did feel a little different though. Like I had tons of booze in my apartment, and every time like I went back into the rooms, I never dumped it out, like just in case, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it might feel better, right?
Yeah.
This time I dumped it all out. Like I dumped everything out, and I was afraid to even share with people that I was trying it again this time. Like family members, aunts, uncles, my girlfriend, who's my wife and wife now. I was afraid to tell them that like I'm doing it again, because I was failing for like I said, for 4 straight years, in and out. And let me tell you, those 4 years, man, that was a battle. And I heard this in the rooms, and I totally resonated with me. Like, we were engaged in a battle every single day, and we didn't even know it. That was so me. Like, I was just fighting it. I was fighting life, and I just kept getting lower and lower and lower. And there was a point too where, my buddies who I'm talking about, like, they wanted me to stay sober. Like these are, truth going guys. These are, they're not angels. Like, they like to have their fun too.
Yeah.
I was a little bit different, but even them, they were like, you got to stop doing this, man. Like, we want you to stay sober. And I got to the point too in this 4 years where I was like, F you guys. I don't care what side you're on. You're either with me or you're against me. And frankly, I don't care what team you're on. I don't. Yeah. This is me, and this is my life, and this is what I'm going to do. You want to get on board and come along? Fine. You don't? Have a nice life. I mean, not me, Shane. Like, I love these guys, but that's where I was. And I did that to my family members, did to my dad. I call people out. Like, I was in a bad place. But something changed. And I can't say it was that moment, because what I'm trying to articulate is you zoom out, and all of a sudden, it was the first time, Shane, I ever put 90 days together. Like, all right, man, I got 90 days for the first time here. And I still was I was so afraid that I was going to fall. I was going to go back out, because that's what I did. That was my MO. But then zoom out, and I had 6 months, and I couldn't believe when I got a year. And then when I got a year, I felt different, like, maybe this is something I can hold on to. Like, you can't ever zoom. Like, I got 17 plus years sober. Even saying that, like, if you knew me then, that was a complete impossibility, but it's not impossible, if you turn things over. For me, I got a thick head, and I'm a slow learner sometimes. Like, I came into AA just to stop drinking. Like, I can't do this anymore. And it took me a while to realize there's a God component, there's a higher power component. And I absolutely found a higher power here. And, now I practice it. Now, I'm on my knees every morning in gratitude, thanking him for the day, thanking him for my family, thanking him for everything, and at the end of the day, and thanking him for giving me the gift of sobriety. And I close every day like that too. Like, that's not how we grew up. Like, you didn't grow up on my knees praying and saying words like gratitude, or trying to learn things like meditation, right? Like, that wasn't the stuff we were talking about out in the schoolyard. So in a roundabout way, if I put my finger on it, like, which is hard to do, it's really finding a higher power, and it's really turning everything over. I'll say one last thing too, is those 4 years, every time I was in and out, like, and I say in and out, like, when I went in, I'd sit in the back, I'd check that box and say I was at a meeting. I'd leave a couple minutes early, say, yep, I went to a meeting, I didn't drink today. But this time, like, when a stranger came up to you and said, hey, man, here's my number, give me a call. And like, every instinct inside of me is to, like calling some dude to, give me his phone number. Like, you don't know who you're talking to, like, back off. This time I was like, you know what, it's working for these people. All right, I'll call you. And I call him. And still, went against everything, all my instincts. And I'd just be like, hey, man, he told me to call you, so I'm calling you. They eased me through it. And I did things like starting to get service. Like, hey, man, come make coffee at 16th Street here. And, I didn't get it. Like I said, I'm a slow learner, but it got me to those meetings, those service commitments. So, shout out to doing service. So, zooming out, it's just fine. It's finding a higher power, and it's turning everything over. And it's given the gift of, I don't know anything, man. And I'm just going to listen, people that were sober, that were older than me, follow the guys that have what you want, like kind of latch on to them. That worked for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny when you were saying that. I went to a meeting, I was thinking like there's a difference between showing up to a meeting and then participating in a meeting and being a part of that meeting. And so I don't want to discourage anyone out there listening either. If you're just showing up, keep showing up. But if you keep showing up, I promise you God will work and eventually you will participate. Eventually, just like Gary, you'll make that phone call. Even if it feels weird, even if it feels strange, like I get it. It is a little bit weird at first, but eventually as we start to rewire our brains and we start to understand that like, hey, it's okay to like be loved and tell someone else I love you, and start to feel again, man, dude, that there's some powerful stuff that can happen when we open up to that. You mentioned a couple times now just about your friends. And so I wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit because I know it was something I struggled with. I know it's something a lot of other dudes struggle with. Like when we first get sober, we might have lifelong childhood friends who we are our boys straight up. Like we've done so much together. We have, just a deep bond and friendship. And sometimes they might not be, like I think you mentioned it. They said, yeah, we all kind of partied together, but like I was a little bit different, in how I partied. I kind of took it to that next level. So how do we kind of separate that when we first get sober? Like how did you do that? And then were you able to reconnect and, and start on a different, maybe a different footing as a sober dude versus like the way that you used to be?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic too, the friends, because like I had said, I thought like I'm going to lose all my boys, like everything, I'm going to lose my identity. I'm going to lose my boys, like you said, my childhood boys we've been through the ringer with, foxhole boys, done everything. But I was given this gift of desperation that I thought about it and I was like, if that's what it is, man, like that's what it is, because I can't live this way anymore. But I mentioned I don't know anything, right? So everything that I thought at that time was completely wrong, so my boys are still my boys to this day. And I say that I think we have it in our heads that, people are going to look at us and what are people going to think and what are people going to say about us. And the truth is, honestly, my experience, it's like 99% of the time, like everyone's got their own life and their own stuff.
Nobody cares.
They don't care. Not that they don't care, but they don't care what you're doing, like enough to like alter their daily lives. And the people that really do, like the few times that, honestly, I can count on one hand, 17 plus years, the few times that I've like kind of given a hard time or kind of pushed back in a corner, like, what do you mean you don't drink type stuff? Like, they weren't my friends, so people that it doesn't matter. And I would drive this home, and I would drive this home to Newcastle when this comes up is, people have their own lives. Like, you got to take care of yourself. Your friends will be your friends. But at the beginning it was tough for me, and that's just not, being honest. And I feel like there's a chunk of time, maybe it was a year or so, where I kind of just checked out. I kind of stayed in touch with them, but like, I almost didn't want to know what everyone was doing. Like, I didn't want to have those triggers show up in parties. But after after a year or so, I became, I guess, a little more confident in who I was and who I was wanting to be, and confident in my sobriety. And so, like I said, these are brothers of mine too, like they are. And so it turned out to like a place of, I was nervous, to a place of, I'm not drinking, and I would slowly kind of reacclimate myself to stuff. And there was times when things were getting a little, squirrely. I'd just leave, simple as that, good. And, today I'm a source of, if someone needs help, like my best friend's wife has a brother, very sick, 50-something years old. He was in the ER and was drinking himself to death. You know who got that phone call, man? I did, man. Yeah. I wasn't getting those phone calls 17 years ago. I was the last, but forget about even being on the list. Now I'm at the top of that list. And those are the gifts of sobriety. So, your friends are going to be your friends. I would tell it to all newcomers, and don't worry about it. Just take care of yourself early on, man. Yeah,
that's great advice, man. Thank you for sharing that. It's good stuff. You also mentioned about not feeling good enough, having that, low confidence in some cases, and just not feeling enough. How do we like deal with that? How do we combat that negative mindset? I know you mentioned mindset is a big part of your life. Like for a dude out there listening who's just like, man, I'm just not feeling like my best right now. Like, what you have any thoughts or advice?
Yeah. So this is my experience. Those thoughts are still with me and they creep in. But today I don't let them win out. I don't let them dominate me. So I'll go into a business meeting or I'll go into a situation and I'll feel less than, and fear is a big, big part of my story too. And a lot of us in recovery, like I thought I wasn't afraid of anything. And I kind of went out that way and I acted that way and I drove that way. And I went through life that way. And like this, like, I don't care, like bring it on, And the truth was that I found this in sobriety. I could put fear on everything in my life. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what you're going to think of me. I'm afraid if something's going to happen. But, the bulk of my fears also, I'd say, again, 90+% of my fears are projections, future projections into the future that haven't even happened yet,
Yeah.
So, but to answer your question, so those thoughts will still pop in, right? Like I'll be afraid or I'll feel less than, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, but I'll work through it. I'll call my sponsor if I have to. I did a trick too. Someone in the rooms gave this to me, and it was when I was I was sober, but I was in a really low place in my sobriety. I was bad spot financially, like really bad. I had a family, I had a young family, and I was really struggling. I got real low in sobriety. And a friend had told me, like, when those thoughts creep in your head, just tell them, I don't know if I can curse on this show. I think we can, but I'm not, shut the fuck up. Like, tell yourself, like, tell those voices, seriously, shut the fuck up and stand the fuck down. And Shane, I did this one day, and nothing had changed in my in what was actually happening. But man, I felt so much better, and I felt empowered. And so I took that. And there'll be days when I'm having a bad day, and I'm really down on myself, and I'll tell myself, like, stand down. Like, dude, you can just. I work my way through it. I guess what I'm saying is those voices, in my experience, they may never stop coming. They may always come, but don't let them win out, because the other side can win, man. Like, you hear it so many times, like the word impossible. Like, I'm possible. Like, I know for a fact, for me, if as long as I'm in sobriety and I'm in the rooms and I'm dialed in and both feet are in, honestly, I'm capable of anything.
Yeah.
If I go out, I fall off. If I feel like I got this and I'm cured, anything's possible in the worst way, and I'll be right back where I was. And there was jails, there was institutions, and just a really quick circle back about my friends. Like, I had a conversation with them. Like, I think I was about 10 years sober, and I was kind of struggling. This is right around the same time I'm talking about. Actually, there was a lot of stuff going on personally, financially, a young family. It was really struggling, and they had a barbecue, and I was like, I never asked them, like, I wonder what they really think about me going away and not drink. Like, I never really had like the talk, and so it came up. And because, like I said, I was feeling very squirrely, and I was like, what do you guys think? I never really talked it all out. And they looked around and they're like, well, we did. And, we think you'd be dead, Gary. Like, we all had this conversation. We think you'd be dead. And I was like, really? Like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep coming back. I'm not going to test the waters here. And I went right back into, like, really, sobriety is, it's a roller coaster sometimes. It's not a straight path to beauty and happiness and contentment and peace, but it's stuff I work towards. But the bottom line is, as long as I'm in here, meaning as long as I'm sober, I got a chance. And there's not a better place. My life's a complete 180 from where I was 17 plus years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit that on the head, man. It's not just because we quit drinking, like, life's not perfect by any means. And there's a lot of ups and downs. I mean, I've experienced a lot of ups and downs myself in our family, and just life stuff, man. You ain't gonna ever get away from life. But the difference is like, I can deal with that stuff in a healthy manner today versus just shutting it out and drinking because I don't know how to deal with anything. So, I mean, such a gift, you know, that we get to experience because of that. So you just kind of mentioned this, like your life today is great. Like what is life like today for you?
You know, life today really is, you know, beyond my wildest dreams, except those dreams, you know, they're different when they were, you know, 20 years ago. You know, my wildest dreams is today's my son's birthday. My son turns 9 today, you know, and it's really the little stuff, and it's stuff that I learned in sobriety, you know, stuff about like finding gratitude and everything around you. Like, you know, just turned 9. Like, I don't know, it might sound funny, but I can't express how proud I feel when he came down here at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, hey man, I'm 9 today, Dad. I'm like, yeah, you are proud. And I get to hug him. And, you know, I mentioned my morning prayers. Like, it's all about gratitude. You know, thank you for this day. Thank you for my family. Thank you for the hugs and kisses I get. And we talked about it on my show with you. You know, big thing I ask for, man, is patience, because it's one thing I really need more patience with them. But, you know, my life is, you know, I hear this a lot too. And it's certainly for me, you know, you can put property of my sobriety, property of AA, property of my recovery on anything here. And that is totally me. And that's including my family. You know, and just to give you, you know, to really drive that point home is, it was my 10 years anniversary. My wife gave me a anniversary card, and saying congratulations. My daughter's 10 now, and my son is 9. But congratulations on your 10 years sobriety. You know, just think, if you hadn't done this, the 2 children wouldn't even exist. They wouldn't be here. Correct. And you know, I say that all the time, like, because it's such a powerful thing for me, you know, because my ego always wants to say, well, maybe I had something to do with it. But the truth is, if I didn't find sobriety, like, you know, I wouldn't have them, you know, they wouldn't be here, you know. And I was the type of alcoholic also that, you know, I'm blessed that they never saw their dad drunk. But if I just had 1 sip of alcohol in this body, my complete aura and my energy totally altered, even though I think I'm fine. And they would sense it and they would know it. And just be a matter of time before their lives completely altered. So, yeah, my life is, you know, it's beyond my wildest dreams, and doing stuff that I never thought I'd be doing today. I get to work from home a lot. I'm still going to New York City often. I'm working on a podcast now, that wasn't even on the radar. And it's, you know, like I said, as long as I stay in the moment, stay in today. Don't project those future fears tomorrow and years in, and what's going to happen. Just live today, and that's all we got. Yeah,
I love it, man. Being in that present moment. Hey, what's your son's name?
Finn.
Happy birthday, Finn. Your dad's awesome, bro. Hope you had a great day, buddy. Brother. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the podcast now, man. And thank you for sharing, you know, your story today and telling us a little bit about, you know, this whole life journey that you've been on. What made you want to start the Begin Again podcast? How'd you come up with the name? Like, give us a little background and take us like back to where this started.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. You know, I'll tell you, the word podcast was not even on my radar as recently as like 6 months ago, even 4 months ago. And, you know, I always had this thing, and it was really bothering me lately, like the last year or so. Like, I hate to say it, like my roster of sponsees, you know, I do sponsor a few guys, but I was always like, I need to help more people, man. Like, I really want to help more people. And I would discuss this with my sponsor, and he'd say, hey, just pray for him to send you guys. He will. Yeah. And you know what? That works. You know, God, please send me someone that's sick. Let me help someone today. And that's part of my prayers too. Please let me help someone today. And, you know, I was talking to friends, and I'm always looking at like next chapters, you know, as far as business, career. Yeah. And these guys started a podcast, and I was like, they're like, Gary, you'd be great at a podcast. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? There's got to be, you know, I love sports, right? I'm like, there's got to be a million sports podcasts, you know. They're like, what are we going to, you know? And they're like, you know, what are you interested in? Anyway, kind of just planned. I'm like, well, you know, love this stuff, but how can I bring that, you know, to a podcast? I don't know. And it just kind of evolved. Like, it just sort of happened. And I say this a lot too. So my wife has heard every crazy idea that I've come up with in the past 20 plus years, like every single one. And I've had some doozies, some really funny ones. And so this one, like, I honestly think it was so it was so early on, Shane, that there was a higher purpose at work here. And I mean that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And like I wrote out this like mission statement for the Begin Again podcast. And I sent it to her, and I was like, man, what is she going to say when I'm telling her I'm going to start a podcast? And I sent her the mission statement, and she was like, she called me. She's like, Gary, you got to just drop everything. She's like, this is you. Like, you love to talk about this stuff. You love to help people. Like, this is you. Drop everything and go on in. And I get in fear. I shared it with like a couple other people. Every time I shared it, like, they were like, oh my God, like they called me right about it. Like, are you really going to do this? This is amazing. You know, I think you'd be really good at it. I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, I think I know I could talk to people, but I don't know, like my interviewer, like, you know, and so I was reading the big book. There's a page in the big book. I forget where it is, but it says, you know, we can begin again. And boom, just clicked. I'm like, then I went and checked out, the domain was available, the beginagainpodcast.com. And, you know, out of all those crazy ideas I had said, you know, I always had to be kind of perfect before I really like did something with it. And this has been completely different. This is like, do it and learn as you go. You know, now you were, I think you're actually coming out Thursday. You're coming out tomorrow, your episode. But so it's been freaking amazing. But I had no idea. The best part of it, Shane, for me, has been the people that I'm meeting, like the people like you and all these people that I'm meeting. So, you know, I have a huge Rolodex of people that I can bring on to my show that I know that I've been with, you know, in sobriety for the past, you know, 15 years or so. But I didn't want to even really tell them. I wanted it to be something before I kind of like, because it felt like, you know, people, they're like more helping me to get it going. I was like, if I do this totally cold on my own and figure it out, like then, you know, maybe they'll come on. And that's how I did it. I just started going down rabbit holes and Instagram and Facebook and finding blogs and stuff and just reaching out to people like you. And, you know, here I am. And the feedback has been so awesome, you know, and like I said, now, you know, you can, I know you can attest to this. You get DMs like, hey man, I listened to your show, you know, strangers, right? They never even heard, but I listened to your show today, man. Like you really helped me. Thank you so much. Or getting a phone call. Like now that's the stuff. And I lay in bed and like, it's like it's a family affair now. Right. So she's like, you know, how's it going? Who are you speaking to? My wife, she vets everyone in every show I do. She's the first one to listen to it, you know, that's and cool. So it's been so fun. But like I said, like the meeting of the people wasn't, I just wasn't even, again, not on the radar. I had no idea it was going to be like this. And now, you know, I'm all in on this, like 150%, like I'm zooming out, like I'm going to make mistakes or whatever, but I'm having so much fun. And, you know, I barely had an Instagram page. Now, like I'm caring about if people are DMing me, following, just again, the gift of not knowing anything, man. Like, so yeah, it's been a beautiful thing. And that's why I started, because I wanted to help people. And the motto, I think we talked about this on your show, is the motto of the show is to help one person today. And I say that, you know, I want this to be as big as possible, you know, and it takes all of my mental energy in a good way, you know, because now I'm so all in on it. And, you know, I'm hoping this show will help one person today.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. You're doing great at it, man. I appreciate you. I had a great time on the show. You did a great job on the interview and just keep it up. And isn't it funny how, isn't it great when we have support from the ones we love? Like, for instance, your wife. You know, like I remember when I sat up in bed one night, you know, in 2014, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. My wife looked at me and she's like, all right, you do that. But she supported me along the way. And I remember when you said you were kind of showing it to a couple people, man, it's so funny. I remember doing the same thing to one of my best friends, Seth. And I remember meeting him at like a coffee shop, and I brought my laptop to him, and I had like the layout and like the name, and like I was so scared. And he's like one of my best friends, you know, and He got sober before I did, but I was so nervous because here's like, I'm putting everything out there and here's this idea that I have and I'm really passionate about it. And I think it's going to be really cool. And I want to help some people and I want to stay sober too. But what is he going to say? Is he going to think I'm stupid? Like, who am I? Like, who am I to think I can go talk on this podcast? And it really goes a lot back to the mindset stuff we talked about earlier, combating that negative mindset. And I believe that we have to let go sometimes. When we practice letting go and trusting the process, and when we really believe in something, we can believe in ourselves and other people will believe in us too. And when I gave it to Seth and I showed him, and I was like, it was that moment, like the drum roll was going in my head and I'm like, oh my God. And I remember him going, dude, that is so awesome. Like, man, I can't wait to see that. That's great, man. You're going to be so good at that. A lot of the same stuff that sounds like your family and friends told you. And just it's a great thing, man. So anyone out there listening, and it doesn't mean you need to go run and start a podcast. Maybe you do that too. But whatever it is that you're doing or you want to do, man, go for it. Like, and the haters are going to hate. And if you ain't getting hated on, you probably ain't doing it right anyway. So,
that's right.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, back to the football, the Coach Solid, the Jets said, if people ain't hating, you ain't popping, and you bring up a great point, man. Like, seriously, like, do it. That as far as like whatever is in your mind, you have an idea, like that's been the biggest, kind of breakthrough for me. Is, like I said, I usually like wait and everything had to be like perfect before maybe I put it out in the world. Like I did this totally opposite way. And just as the man back there, just do it, man. Just do it. You figure it out as you go. That's the best way to learn. And I'll bring up two other quick points if you don't mind. I was at a conference. It was at the end of April. It was like an e-commerce conference. I was just there just to try to like learn stuff. And like this podcast idea was starting. And I said to my wife, I'm going to go to this conference. And if everyone asks me what I do, I'm launching the Begin Again podcast. And I kind of went into this conference and everyone I met was like, oh, what are you here for? I was like, what are you? I was like, I don't sell anything. I was like, I'm starting a podcast and here it is. And I can't tell you, I've had 2 guests on the show from the conference. I have people reaching out to me like for help. Like, hey, my husband, he was sober when we got married. Can you help him? And like I said, it just, the positive affirmation constantly, we're at a spot, right, Shane, where it's like, it's not 6 degrees of separation. It's like 0.1 degrees separation. Like if it's not ground zero where you're the sick person, you most likely have someone very close to you, family member, girlfriend, boyfriend, parent, aunt, all of it, that, or someone very close to you that is afflicted with this disease of addiction or alcoholism. Right. So we're in a spot, at least in my head, that there can't be enough of us, right? Yeah. And so you hear that word term like a crowded market, right? There can't be enough of us, right? And we have similar backgrounds that you're describing in the beginning of yours, and you are awesome at what you do, man. It's a pleasure to be on here. Thanks, and just one last thing about my family, like, so I have nieces that I'm really super close with, and I was like, they're going to hear this. They're 20 something years old. They knew I was a wild man, but they were young. They've heard stories, and so I didn't want them to know about this yet. Like I wanted it to be something. And like, I recorded my first episode and it was going to get launched. And my wife's like, Gary, I'm just too proud of this. Like I need to tell everybody. And so I was like, all right. And so she told her mom, she told her nieces, her sister. And there's that fear. Like, what are they going to think of me now? Like, oh my God. And they were the support they had for me was just incredible. And they're like, holy cow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know you got arrested. You hit a police officer. Oh my God. I'm like, yeah.
Uncle Gary is a savage, man. Come on. Where's this coming from? Yeah, that's funny, man.
Yeah. Your mom didn't tell us over dinner when you were 10 years?
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting is just, you're right. You said it. Go and do it, man. Follow your heart. Chase your dreams. I'm not saying quit your job. You got something you want to do, go and do it, man. You can find the time, follow your heart and just do it.
Yeah, I love it, man. And don't do the perfectionism thing either, because you hit that on point. Like when we sit around and wait, it needs to be perfect. And I'm very guilty of that and things, and I've gotten better at it. But I had John Lee John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur Fire.
Yeah.
John's a great dude, and I've had him on the show here. And one of the things he said that stuck out to me, we talked about perfectionism, and he was very blunt, and I couldn't agree more. He said, "You're not a perfectionist. You're a coward. Just face it. I said, damn.
Whoa.
He wasn't calling me that, but he was just saying, like, when we get locked in the perfectionism mode, we're not perfectionists. We're scared. We're fearful because it needs to be perfect. It needs to be perfect. Well, what happens is most of the time we never end up doing anything because we're fearful. So it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect, man. And that's something I still got to work on. I still continue to do that, but man, don't be a perfectionist. Whatever it is that you want to do, man, just get going. And like Gary said, like, learn as you go. I did the same thing. I learned as I go. I still continue to make mistakes, but I learned from that. Hopefully don't make it again and continue to grow, man. So great.
100%.
Great stuff today. I appreciate you coming on. Where can folks reach out to you? Where can they find you? Where can they find the Begin Again podcast?
I'm on Instagram at the Begin Again Podcast. My website is thebeginagainpodcast.com, and I'm on Facebook as well. But Instagram is where I'm really doing most of my interacting. So DM me, give me a follow, check it out. Hopefully it helps one person today, like I said. We'll put all those links in the show notes. Gary, it's been great to have you on the podcast, man. Thank you. Shane, it's a pleasure getting to know you, man, and thank you so much for having me today. Thanks for tuning in today. You can find more resources, more podcasts by going to thatsoberguy.com. I hope something spoke to you. Share the podcast with a friend. Connect us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. Peace, love, and respect. Keep your blood clean.